Welcome to another episode of Tough Topics. I'm your host, Vonny Sweetland, and today's show is about the hyper-partisan political world we've seen as of late. Whether in the US, in Europe, or here at home in Canada, it seems like people are so politically partisan nowadays that there's no room for anything in between. Folks are seen as either extreme left or extreme right. But what about those people who don't really identify with either? People who are common sense, solution-focused, and pragmatic. Well, enter in Dr. Rana, leader of a new platform and party called the Centrist Party. Welcome, Dr. Rana. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for inviting me at your show.
Absolutely. Now, you've said there is no political party in Canada that has a balanced approach to the critical issues faced by Canadians today. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Why do you feel that way? And how do you think your platform fills that void?
Our political landscape falls into two ideologies, either right-wing or left-wing. If you look at left-wing parties like Green Party, NDP, Liberal, some are extreme left-wing, some are a bit closer to center. And on the other side, if you look at People's Party, extreme right-wing, and then conservatives towards center, but still right-wing. So this extreme right-wing and left-wing has caused so much division, especially after Mr. Trump came in U.S. and then, the impact of U.S. does happen in our country. So we feel that people are more divided now than before.
Yeah, I would agree. I think U.S. politics does sometimes seep its way into Canadian politics and the like. It certainly sets a precedent, and we have seen people become very hyper-partisan over the last couple of years in particular. Now, in terms of the Centrist Party, again, why do you feel your party fills that void? What is it about the Centrist Party that makes it unique from some of these other parties that you've mentioned?
The other parties give you a package deal. For example, if you are in Liberal Party, for example, then you have to accept everything what the party platform says. And if you are in Conservative, then you got to be okay with every principle or every issue, how they deal with, right? So our party, it may be a bit right-wing in some issues and left-wing in the other issues. For example, if you are conservative, then you got to be, they say that they're fiscally conservative, right? That's what they always have said. Although it's not always, practical. But if you are, you say you're a conservative, you are fiscally, say that I like their, fiscal, responsibility and prudence, but at the same time, they would be against, gun control, for example, right? So you don't have a choice that you can support a tight gun control. At the same time, you can be, you can be fiscally conservative. Same thing in Liberal. If you like one policy, then you have to like the other policy as well. So in our issue, for example, we try to follow, yes, it's really difficult to make policies which are okay with every single Canadian, but we try to follow policies or science and common sense principles. And in one issue, we might look left-wing, for example, on racism, indigenous issues, and tight gun control. We might look that we are left-wing, but on issue of oil and gas, on issue of Alberta supporting Western Canada, on issue of our opposition to certain, Quebec bills, we might seem very right-wing. Actually, people have called me, Albertan in Toronto,
So you're saying essentially that your party offers more of a balance, and instead of taking a blanket approach to policy, it's sort of a mixed bag. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think so, yeah.
Well, I certainly agree with you there. I think that there's a need for policies that feel like they fit everybody. We're going to pick up with Dr. Rana just after these messages. Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a moment. Your official party website, Dr. Rana, states the Conservative Party and other right-wing parties use fear-mongering and anti-minority and anti-Indigenous rhetoric. And you state that almost as a fact. Do statements like that not contribute to divisive rhetoric, painting one political ideology as anti-minority? I think it's pretty intense, and I know that a lot of people would take a great deal of exception to that. So I wanted to ask you and give you the opportunity to maybe elaborate a bit more and bring us into the fold.
Yeah. See, when we approach people, we have to talk about facts on the ground. Right? Every party says that they're, for minorities or they're, inclusive. But if you look at their, governmental policies, you can judge a party only by, how was their, government, not by what they say on, paper. So if you look at Harper conservative government, unfortunately, it is. I'm sure every Canadian agrees with me how they approached issues relevant to minorities. For example, Prime Minister, previous Prime Minister was approached by media, and they were asking him that what about the inquiry of murdered Indigenous women and girls? And he openly said on national media that that's not our priority. I mean, that's not on radar, right? And then if you look at other issues, in time of SARS in Winnipeg, instead of sending PPE, instead of sending sanitizers and support from government, the previous conservative government sent them body bags. I mean, this is how you insult people, right? And then, there was a MP from Toronto. He was, from minorities, and in the House of the Common, he was blamed that his family is linked to, terrorism, and so these things are on the record. This is just a this is a public knowledge. So that unfortunately caused division. Also, they came up with, in 2015 campaign, they came up with in this tip line, the tip line for minorities that you can call, you can call a phone number, and then they will be investigated for the barbaric cultural practices tip line. So painting minorities as they are barbaric, it does obviously, shows you that you
Sure,
are
and
not...
I don't disagree with that at all. I think some of the things you've mentioned are certainly appalling, and as you say, some of them are visibly on the record. I would just push back a little and say it's divisive in itself to paint an entire political ideology as one way. Frankly, I know people from all sides of the political aisle, all sides of political affiliations, and I find people are very different. It's hard to group everyone in one basket. Wouldn't you say that that's true?
If you, a party's presentation, people look at a party from these statements, right? If you look at after Mr. Harper, we were thinking that after 2015 defeat, they would learn and they would make changes. So if you look at Mr. Scheer's time, it was not a major shift. He said openly when there was a veteran nation protest, he said about the Indigenous people that do they know what is their privilege, right? And during his campaign, this is also on the record, during his campaign, he went to indigenous voters and he said that I'm not here for your votes, right? And it kind of continued. Mr. Aaron O'Toole, the recent leader, he also said on the record that the purpose of residential schools was good intention and education. One of the senator, she retired now, she posted letters on her website which were talking, about the indigenous people, and they were insulting them.
Well, I think I would say this. There has been a lot of different people to lead the Conservative Party over the last while. Many people would argue that Aaron O'Toole has been quite progressive. But again, that is food for thought, and we'll pick up right after these messages.
Now, although we're a brand new national news organization, we want to come in running.
No subject is off limits.
Any story sounds right until you hear the other side.
We cut through the noise so you get the facts and the know-how.
That aren't people yelling and screaming at one another.
On matters that impact Canadian businesses, the markets.
Some of the biggest issues and policy decisions happening today.
We bring honesty and truth to the issues we cover.
When you're uncomfortable, you're growing. And when you're growing, you're learning. Switching gears for a moment, you've talked online about Quebec's overhaul of its strict French language law. Supporters of the bill say it's needed because French is on the decline in Quebec. Those who don't support Bill 96 say it's too extreme and takes rights away from English-speaking communities. Where do you stand on this bill?
In Quebec, the Anglophones and the Allophones have been there for centuries. They are part of Quebec. Quebecois does not just mean, to me, it does not just mean that anyone who speaks only French is a Quebecois. Anyone, I think, who lives in Quebec, whether they are allophones, anglophones, or cultural minorities, they are all Quebecois. And we can't ignore these people. There are 2.2 million people who are not French speaking. It's double of population of Alberta, just living in one part of Quebec. And now the Bill 96, to protect your language, you got to provide more opportunities for people to learn and to adopt, not that you start restricting them, right? So with Bill 96, not only it would have impact on the Anglophones, but it would have a serious impact on the businesses as well. But the, François Legault government is focused more on winning this election based on the French voters. The economy and business, I don't think that's their top priority.
Yeah. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, do you feel like businesses, particularly those who are dominated by English-speaking culture, are going to be harmed the most?
No, all the businesses. What the Bill 96 would implement, that your services to consumer as well as non-consumers have to be in French, right?
Right. And so that'll, of course, damage some of these businesses that at present time are strictly English speaking and maybe don't have those capabilities at this time.
Right. Also, all their paperwork, their contracts, they have to be exclusively in French. Now it can be in English as long as the parties, both parties agree. So that would cause impact on the businesses. And this large segment of Anglophone community, their school boards and their education, all this will be affected.
Right. And so what would you see as the most common sense, pragmatic solution?
Yeah, I would suggest that the current CAQ government should take this bill back, and they should provide more opportunities for people to learn French.
Right, right. And do you feel that this bill leaves some people out, again, particularly English-speaking folks?
Of course. Also, with respect to constitution, if one province start changing constitution in this way, that they have the authority to change constitution unilaterally, then what about Alberta, Ontario, or Saskatchewan tomorrow could say that, okay, we are also, going, only English speaking. We are eliminating French. This would increase the division.
I agree. And I think we were just speaking about this in our last segment. It's really about having solutions that feel like they include everybody. For me personally, when I look at policies that alienate any specific group, I do have an issue with that. I think we live in a very diverse society, diverse in all things, diverse in culture, diverse in religion, and diverse in language. So to me, the hope would be that they would draft policy that is inclusive and makes everybody feel like they have a voice. And this is still evolving, so hopefully that is something we'll see happen soon.
Sure, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, just after these messages, we'll be right back with Dr. Rana.
I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum. On Boom and Bust, what you're going to get are former prime ministers.
It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't mind who gets the credit.
Senior economists.
We need to unleash small businesses.
This is a great country to start a business. It is not a great country to build a business.
Realistically, we have to be a trading nation. That's our history.
I'm very worried about how vulnerable Canada's economy is.
These are the kinds of issues that we tackle at Boom and Bust.
With a recent ousting in the federal Conservative Party, a new leadership race is quickly underway. Conservatives are promising to revamp their party and platform, while Liberals are hoping to transition into what they call a post-COVID world. Dr. Rana, tell our viewers what the Centrist Party hopes to achieve and present to voters in the coming months and years as some of the other major parties are readying themselves.
I hope Conservative would elect a leader who is progressive and inclusive and makes a significant shift. I do see that Mr. O'Toole tried to make a little bit of shift, which was objected by social conservatives, and this may be one of the reasons that he was removed. So all political parties, we are working for the benefit of Canadians, for the interest of our nation. So we should wish that every party brings a leadership which is good for people. At the end of the day, we are one team. Yes, we might disagree on policies, but we are not enemies. Right? We have to work together. I don't believe the way opposition and the government party works in our country, that they have to oppose every single issue. If there is no issue, they have to bring an issue so that there could be, opposition for the sake of opposition. So our party is a new party. So we are driving a membership campaign. People are coming in our party. And so we are very open about our platform. We are a fiscally responsible, fiscally prudent party. We want to balance the budget in 5 years. We'll try our best. And also we would support our natural resources industry because Liberals as well as Conservatives both have neglected the economy of Alberta. I was in Alberta in September, and all the big offices, oil companies, gas companies have gone bankrupt, and so many issues have happened. And with the carbon tax, this has a negative impact. Mr. O'Toole was always opposed to carbon tax, but I think to attract some left-wing voters, he brought a carbon policy which is even worse than the Liberals, right? We are against carbon tax, and also we want to bridge the gap of Indigenous people and the other Canadians. So that is our main focus at this point, to work on economy.
Sure. And when you say, speaking of the economy, that you would like to balance the budget within 5 years, what would you say to folks who may feel that that's a little overzealous? Do you think it's actually achievable in that short period of time?
It is, I believe, achievable. I think previous Liberal government I think it was a Chrétien government which did eliminate deficit and brought into surplus. I think we need to look at the foreign aid which we send. Most of the foreign aid which goes to African or Asian countries, it ends up in the hands of corrupt politicians. I don't think it reaches users, the regular people. So we have to look at the subsidies which we give to mega corporations, the corporate welfare concept, right? All these things, and also government overspending. I know it's really tough, but I think someone has to take a very bold step, and all these extra expenses government does. I think in terms of benefits, salaries, all this has to be looked at. And hopefully we get a leadership which is focused on balancing the budget.
Well, I don't disagree with you there. I think I am not envious of whoever the future leaders are going to be, because there certainly is a lot of work. But thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Rana. It's been a real pleasure, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Take care. And of course, to those of you watching at home, thank you to you as well. I think it's important that we create a political climate where all voices feel that they're included. I don't think hyperpartisanship is the way forward. I think many people exist somewhere in the center, and so it's good to hear that there are people championing those exact values, because at the end of the day, we need to ensure that all voices are represented in our society. I'm Vonny Sweetland, this is Tough Topics, and as always, all voices matter.